You know that moment when you're talking and, whoops, the wrong word just flies out of your mouth? I mean, a word that sounds right but is definitely wrong. It can be a little embarrassing, sure, but let's be honest, sometimes it's just hilarious. Well, today we're going to dive into the fine art of that exact mistake and the iconic character who literally gave it its name.
All right, let's just jump right in with a perfect example. Get this. He is the very pineapple of politeness. A pineapple. What in the world does that mean? Like, is he sweet? Kind of spiky on the outside? It's so wonderfully weird, right? And that strangeness, well, that's our key to unlocking a truly brilliant comedic device.
So yeah, what is going on with that whole pineapple thing? Well, it's the perfect doorway into a very specific and, honestly, a very delightful type of verbal blunder.
Okay, so what we just encountered is a classic malapropism. That's the official term for it. It's when you accidentally use a word that sounds a lot like the one you meant, but has a totally different meaning. And the result is usually pretty funny. See, the person speaking thinks they're sounding super intelligent, but they end up doing the exact opposite. So that pineapple, what was it supposed to be? The pinnacle of politeness. Pinnacle, not pineapple. See how that works?
But what's so cool about this is where the word malapropism even comes from. I mean, it didn't just pop into existence. It's actually named after a person, or to be more precise, a fictional character who was the undisputed queen of this kind of mistake. Her name? Mrs. Malaprop.
So who was this Mrs. Malaprop? Well, she was a major character in a hit comedy from 1775 called The Rivals. And get this, her name comes from the French phrase mal à propos, which literally means inappropriate. How perfect is that? Because that's her whole deal. She was completely obsessed with sounding smart and sophisticated. She was always dropping these huge fancy words to seem educated, but she had absolutely no idea what they really meant. And the result, as you can imagine, is just pure comedic gold.
All right, now we get to the really fun part. Let's take a look at some of her greatest hits, her most famous and hilarious blunders. Or, as she might put it herself, let's have a look at her nice arrangement of epitaphs.
Okay, here's a great one. She's trying to describe a stubborn young lady, and she comes out with this. She's as headstrong as an allegory on the banks of the Nile. Just picture that for a second. An allegory, a complex story with a hidden moral, just kind of lounging by the river. It makes zero sense. So what on earth was she trying to say?
An alligator. She meant an alligator. Headstrong as an alligator on the banks of the Nile. Now that makes sense. And it just perfectly shows you where the humor comes from. Allegory, alligator, they sound alike, but the picture in your head is just worlds apart.
Okay, this next one might be my absolute favorite, just because it's so beautifully ironic. She's giving this very stern order, and she says, "You must illiterate him," I say, quite from your memory. Illiterate him? How do you illiterate someone? She meant obliterate. Obliterate him from your memory. And the irony is just chef's kiss. She uses the word illiterate, which is all about not being able to read or write, while making this massive verbal mistake. It's just too perfect. And oh, she wasn't a one mistake per sentence kind of gal. No, she could pack 'em in. Here she is talking about education. I would have her instructed in geometry, that she might know something of the contagious countries. Did you catch that? That was a 2-for-1 special. She mixed up geometry with geography, and she talked about contagious countries instead of contiguous countries, countries that border each other. It's an absolutely spectacular double whammy of a mistake.
But here's the really brilliant part. These verbal train wrecks aren't just there for a quick laugh. The playwright, a guy named Richard Sheridan, had something much bigger and much smarter in mind. There's a real satirical punchline to all of this.
See, Mrs. Malaprop's blunders are doing 3 things at once. They're a form of social satire, they create some amazing character irony, and they even tie into the dramatic irony of the whole story.
So first, let's talk social satire. Back in the 18th century, Sheridan was totally making fun of the upper class. These were people obsessed with looking polished and educated, but he was pointing out that a lot of the time, it was all for show. Beneath the surface, there wasn't a whole lot of real intelligence. Mrs. Malaprop was basically the walking, talking symbol of that whole idea.
Then you've got the character irony. This woman is constantly telling everyone else how they should talk and act, while at the same time proving she has no clue what she's talking about. There's a part where she says a girl should have a supercilious knowledge in accounts. She meant superficial. It's this perfect, unintentional confession of her own ignorance. And finally, there's the dramatic irony. Her word mix-ups are a perfect mirror for her mix-ups in the actual plot. Think about it. Just like she can't tell an alligator from an alligator, she completely misreads her own romantic situation. She's convinced this guy is head over heels for her, when in reality, he's in love with a niece. Her confusion is total, inside and out.
So when you put all of that together, it starts to make sense why this one character, from a play written almost 250 years ago, has left such a huge mark on the English language.
It's pretty simple, really. Mrs. Malaprop is so unforgettable that her special talent for messing up words gave us the very term we still use today, the Malapropism.
And really, her mistakes were more than just funny. They were a tool. As one analysis points out, her derangement of epitaphs was the playwright's secret weapon for calling out all the vanity, the fake pride, and the hypocrisy he saw in the society of his day.
So, what's the big takeaway here? Is that Mrs. Malaprop is so much more than just a funny character. She's a timeless warning sign. She's this constant reminder that being smart isn't about using the biggest words you can find, it's about actually understanding them. She's basically a living monument to the dangers of intellectual vanity.
And that kind of leaves us with one last question to chew on, doesn't it? In our own lives, right now, in our emails, in meetings, even just in conversations, when does that little push to sound just a bit more intelligent actually backfire and make us sound, well, foolish? When do we become our very own Mrs. Malaprop?